Sometimes you are. All right. So a group of lawmakers now taking the president on over this whole issue. 63 Republican congressmen have sent a letter arguing against the need to raise the debt limit at all. They say that the president's claims that the U.S. government will have to default on its payments if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised, simply not true, in their opinion. So the numbers, they say, don't add up. The letter says in part this: we ask that you make an immediate, clear, and unequivocal public commitment that your administration will continue to make all interest payments on time, as well as ensuring the pay of our military personnel and making Social Security and Medicare payments in full. We look forward to your reply. Joined now by Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma. He is one of the lawmakers who signed his name to that letter to the president. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Martha, good to be with you.
Thank you. We've talked about this a lot in terms of how the administration, it's really the Treasury's responsibility, if we do get into going past this deadline, to figure out the money they have, where's it going to go? And that would be up to their discretion. And you say that they could cover all those main bases without raising the debt ceiling, right? How so?
Well, you can cover those that were enumerated in the letter without raising the debt ceiling. To cover all the functions of government, frankly, you will have to raise the debt ceiling. Today, that's why the Republican conference formally embraced the idea of cap and balance, which basically is to cut some spending now. There's some areas we agree on with the president. We should do that. We should cap future expenditures over a 10-year period, gradually lowering the percentage of the GNP that we spend on various programs. And finally, we ought to give the American people an opportunity to decide whether or not they want a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution.
You know, the president kind of referred kind of vaguely to that program, cut cap and spending. He said, well, you know, we'll see if it's a serious program. But basically, he said today that he thinks that the proposals from Republicans in terms of the top line number that they would like to see in spending cuts, he says that's going to cause really a huge problem for a lot of Americans. Here's what he said in this quote, and then we'll get your reaction.
And my expectation is that you'll probably see the House vote on a couple of things just to make political statements. But if you're trying to get to $2.4 trillion without any revenue, then you are effectively gutting a whole bunch of domestic spending that is going to be too burdensome and is not going to be something that I would support.
Wow, that's a really strong charge. He says basically you guys are just going to make a couple of votes next week as a political statement, was the way that he put it. And he says that you just can't possibly get to $2.4 trillion unless you raise taxes. What say you,
Well,
sir?
The only person that's frankly been ridiculous in this argument so far has been the president. He appointed a debt commission and then didn't adopt their plan. He sent us a budget that was rejected 97-0 by the United States Senate, which his party controls. He called for raising the debt ceiling without any offsetting cuts. That got exactly 97 out of 435 members of Congress to vote for it.
But he says, you know, but I want to get your thoughts on it, because he says that you guys are the ones who are being unreasonable. He says, how can you possibly, let me just finish my question real quickly, sir, if I may. Sure. He says, how can you possibly come to the table and not ask? He said you can't ask just some people to make sacrifices. You have to also ask the wealthiest and corporations to also get rid of some of these loopholes and give a little bit more as well. What do you say about that?
Well, we want the government to make a sacrifice. Frankly, that's the one that's taking in and spending the revenue. And the president's just not willing to cut any spending in any meaningful way at all. Look, we all know that we have a deficit problem. And most of the changes that are going to require spending cuts. We don't have to do them all now, but we ought to start down the road. We've offered the Ryan budget that does that. There's the Bowles-Simpson plan, which the president has refused to embrace. Now there's another plan being put forward. The only person that's not being serious in the discussion and actually offering a plan that the American people can look at in detail is the president of the United States. So, you know, I would argue he's been sort of, you know, disingenuous, to say the least, in how he's portrayed their offers here. He hasn't put a serious offer on the table.
Congressman Cole, we thank you very much for being here.
Martha, thank you.
Sounds like you folks are still very far apart on all